I got a DM from Dizzy Rascal, and he went, "Mate, I never know you've done them tunes.
Yeah,
those tunes are my
was that
tunes."
Bear Witness?
Yeah,
them ones. Yeah.
And I said to my daughter, I said, I think Dizzy Rascals just DM'd me. She said, "What, Dad?" She took my phone because I just got like Instagram and all, because I'm not. I mean, I've learned.
Well, you know, Dizzy's a super fan of yours, Ray, as you know.
I didn't know that. And Wiley and all them.
Yeah, man.
Like, and even Wiley quoted my nephew said to me, you know, Wiley said if he could be a DJ, we'd want to be you. And I'd got accepted. I was on the house scene. I was the resident DJ at Astoria. And I would be playing 2-hour sets alongside Matthew B, alongside some of the greatest house DJs of all time. Frankie Bones, Carl Cox, Fabio, Groove Rider, me, Mickey, Frost, Brian. We'd already become household names through 88 up to 92.
Yeah. And we are live. And on today's Junglist Massive podcast, we have got the legend that is Ray Keith in the building with us.
Very much.
Just back from tour.
Back from the US. That was mad.
Yeah, it's been a long career, but I can tell, like, you've had a hard few days, haven't you, Ray? I can tell, mate.
Yeah, it's quite regimental. I mean, that's probably the last big tour I'm going to do. I did 7 or 8 dates in 10 days, so it's quite intense. But I'm kind of, after COVID, and my agents wanted me to go out because I did a tour in October and I did 7 dates again in 10 days.
Was that US?
In the US.
Yes,
and they wanted to extend it for 3 weeks. And I was like, mate, I can't be away from home for 3 weeks. So we decided to break it up. And even like when Nookie was here, he was saying that he's going to Canada, but he's only going to go for 3 days. And I think now, Doug, so I'm just going to do long weekends.
Yeah.
Because we're older now, and I want to choose what I want to do, and still be blessed, and I don't want to be hammer and tong, and like I was saying to you just off camera, it's our testimonial years now, like
you've got to enjoy these years. This can't be you've done the graft, you've done all the hard work, you dug the hole, you built the house, now you want to sit in the garden.
And I just feel like now is the time to have the testimonials, to play alongside my friends, my peers, the people that I grew up with, Fab and Groove. If that wasn't for those two, like, a lot of us wouldn't have any careers, because at Rage they put us on the map. And we, going back, I was a soul, rare groove, jazz.
Yeah. Well, let's take it all the way back to little mini Ray Keith. Growing up in Essex, like myself, an Essex boy. Before the music came into your life, as in, because you was DJing from 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
So when I say before that, there's not that much before that. I mean, you was a baby, then you was a DJ.
Yeah.
What kind of sounds was in the house? What was the influences that drew you to become a DJ at 11 years old,
Yeah, when my mum and dad were together, there was so much music in the house. My mum.
What's your background anyway?
My mum and dad are Mauritian.
Okay.
So that culture is very cosmopolitan. They speak Creole, broken French, patois, and it was a great time. They were cooking in the house. There was always music in the house.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of social pressures. My old man used to drink, and he wasn't very nice, and my upbringing was really hard.
Okay.
He was a violent geezer, and it broke my family up. And from the age of 8, I was broken-hearted.
Yeah,
and I come from a broken home, and I come from violence and alcohol.
Yeah.
So
which was kind of a rare thing. Years ago, there was less broken homes and broken families because people tried they plastered over the cracks in the 70s and whatnot. But
the 80s was a bit. I'm taking you right back now.
Yeah.
Remember Kramer versus Kramer?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right. So that era was a boom of people getting divorced.
Right, because that was they were the law firm, weren't they?
Yeah.
No.
That was Dustin Hoffman and. I've forgotten her name now. Famous female artist, and it was basically they divorced, but he got custody of the son. But then he gave gave him kind of back, and it was just how he fitted into his life. And it was very unusual that my dad got custody of us.
Right.
But anyway, at the time, there was a lot of pressures of coming to the UK. It was very racist, you know.
I mean, he was in Colchester as well, wasn't he? Which wasn't the most multicultural of areas anyway. At that time.
You know, I got my head kicked in a good few times, and I had to learn how to fight, bro. I had to learn how to defend myself.
Toughen
so
you
I
up
went to
from
martial
young.
arts school. I didn't pick up boxing until I was well later on in, but I did martial arts. I did really well with that, and and I was just a broken youth, and music was my saviour. And my dad, I was the black sheep of the family because all my family are really like doctors, nurses, scientists, all to do with medical stuff. And I was like, I went right the other way.
Acid houses for me.
I was like, I'm not having this. I'm going to do something different.
Yeah.
But when my dad saw how passionate I was about it, I had my own disco. I was doing school discos. I built my own lights. My uncle used to have a shop in Colchester called First and Foremost, and he was importing and exporting stuff. So I kind of had a good leg up, and my old man helped me. And I think further down the line, when I became a young man myself, I realised, and I forgave him because it was a lot of pressure on him.
Yeah.
If I was getting that pressure at school, what type of pressure was he getting at work? And
of course,
they used to spit on them down the street, like when they're walking. So that must have been difficult to digest. But I'm British, you know. I was born here, born in Colchester. I'm an Essex boy. I do what Essex boys do. I drive fast. And
have you had a white XR3i?
Motorbikes and cars.
Yeah.
Like, that's what we do.
Let's talk about. Sorry, go on, mate.
And growing up, you know, like football, loved it. You know, it was ingrained in us. We were Manchester United. You were either Liverpool or Manchester United. You weren't one of, you weren't anything else. And so I was like Manchester United. And boxing was always on in our house. And there was cooking, there was laughter. My mum had Diana Ross records. My dad used to have a DA, and he had a mate who was a teddy boy, so they all had their mates round. So it was a great amalgamation of culture.
Yeah.
You know, that it was black people, brown people, white people, and we'd be eating biryani at weekends. They'd be playing Sega music. And it was great, but when they split
I can see you feel a bit fondly when you're thinking back. I can see. I
'cause
know that I can tell it come with its problems, but I can see the glow in your eye when you're talking about
I'm
it.
thinking about my mum and I think about my dad. It saddens me because they're not here now. Do you know what I mean?
I'm sorry to hear.
And when you're talking real time, I've got kids now. They're 23. Well, my eldest son's 33, 34. The second one's 32. Wow. My two daughters are 21 and 22 and 23. So as a parent, and when COVID happened, my auntie, she's like a saint. She lost her husband and she lost her son within 6 weeks to cancer. And I was wearing a Muslim hat, and I was with all my cousins and my nieces and everything, and no one was wearing a hat. And I was like, why is you lot not wearing a hat? And I'm not that greatly religious. I mean, I know a few bits and pieces, and I've followed the culture, but I'm not ingrained in the culture like some of them are. Yeah. And they're like, because you're the oldest uncle. I was like, what? And I was like,
yeah, take that one on the chin, didn't you, mate?
I was like, shit, I'm an elder now. But those years, like, you know, and skateboarding and playing on the street,
proper,
and playing football, and didn't matter what colour you was. We was just going out, riding our bikes around the block. White City was really dangerous for us because we lived in a working class area, but the next street along, it like through the passageway, it was tough.
That's
running a gauntlet, and that's where my school was. So, but yeah, I was full of life, you know. Like I was a little round short, fatty. I had straight hair. My dad used to cut my hair. It was like a bowl. And I used to wear flares.
Yeah, Beatles cut.
Yeah. So and corduroys. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And really flowery shirts.
But that was them times. It was. When I look at my
mum
old
used to
school
my mum
photos.
used to put eyeliner on me and my sister, because when we used to go to the do's and that, and on a Sunday we'd all stack with all the rest of the Indians and go to the Indian show houses in Ilford to watch all Amitabh Bachchan films, like he's a famous actor.
Yeah.
And then we'd go and my dad would be driving out back through London on the old A12, stop off, have a Kentucky.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Banging, you know, like get a piece of chicken, because in them days food was tight.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
mate.
It wasn't
like
all
a Mackie D's or a KFC, that was a
evaporated milk
treat.
And them things there
Yeah,
was
yeah.
running, and you know, rice pudding. They'd take us on road trips, heat up the rice pudding on the little colour gas things.
Wicked.
And my dad was well travelled. He took us to Wales. He took us to Scotland. And when he wasn't in that darkness, he was a funny dude. You know, my mum was really light with green eyes, and my dad was really dark, like Planet of the Apes. Yeah. So it was a real contrast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but you know, and as I got older, you know, I got close. I was always close to my mum. She died when she was 55, and that was a shock to me. Do you know what I mean? But just growing up, I just loved music. Do you know what I mean? I started. My dad bought me a Grundig tape deck, and I used to tape the top 40 on a Sunday, but cut the geezer talking.
Yeah.
So when
that was like a fine art doing that, mate.
Yeah,
getting that
and
right.
it was hard. You know what I mean? Like the geezer be talking, I'd be like, "What the hell?" I'd have to quickly rewind, stop it, pause it, wait until the tune come on, let the tune off. Then when I played the tune back, it was like a mixtape of non-stop music. Yeah. So I guess that was my first era of mixing. One of my closest friends, Bainey, he was there from day one. Like I was, I started to play at the school discos, you know, the Birdie song, all the typical rubbish. Yeah. And then I started to buy imports from Mr. Toast. Jimmy Dixon was the first geezer that I bought records off of. And,
was this Colchester as well?
This was in Colchester, yeah. And I used to be, but before I was buying those records, this is mad, right? I used to get dressed up in my suit and go to bed with my pajamas on. And obviously my mum and dad were separated. My dad had got a new woman. They were in the house. And on a Sunday, I used to go to Embassy Suites. So I was only like 15.
Yeah.
So I used to wait until I thought they'd gone to bed. And then I would jump out of my window onto my ledge, onto the fucking grass. But the same day, I would have to say to my sister, "You got to fucking let me in." She'd say, "I want all your chicken." I was like, "Caesar, man, just leave me a bit of chicken." She'd say, "No, Farad, I want the whole thing."
Is she your younger sister?
My sister, yeah. And I was like, "What the fuck?" Caesar? She said, "You want to go out dancing and do all that devil shit?
It's going to cost you chicken, mate."
So,
to be fair.
So it was... I jumped on there, I went out dancing, I saw Dave Malone. There was another guy called Ian Jerry, there was Mr. Toast. But Dave Malone was always the geezer that told me what the tunes was. Yeah. In them times it was like E.T. Phone Home. Do you remember that tune, Set It Off?
Yeah.
Oh, mate, when I heard that skippy beat, I was like, mate. And I used to be a dancer, so I was dancing on the floor. But every time I heard something that was quite unusual, I'd go and ask Dave Malone. Then... that club used to finish at 12 or 1. I'd run all the way home, sweating, and then I'd have to throw stones at my bedroom. And then you'd see her wake up as if to say, yeah. And then she'd either come downstairs and open the latch, or she'd throw the key down. Yeah. And it wasn't until years later that when my dad was alive and I said, "You don't even know the half of what I used to have to do." And he went, "Jumping out the window."
He knew all along.
I said, "Why didn't you let me fucking have a front door?" And he was like, "Well, you had to do your thing." I was like, "You're a fucker." And he would do
He's giving you the schooling, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly. And I'd had a sound system, and he'd go to the garage and he'd go, "Switch the sound system on, boy." And he'd stay there with a baseball bat because he'd want me to play it loud and people complain. Yeah. So there was a bit, I guess I've got that part of me in him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until later on when he kind of sobered up and went to Mecca Medina and put his head in the carbon and came back and looked like 20 years younger and stopped drinking that that we had this like a good, healthy relationship. Do you know what I mean? Because obviously
that's nice that you got to that though.
Yeah,
right?
I think. I mean, I told you I wrote a book, and I've had so much bad shit happen to me that I guess I just learned how to release it rather than hang on to it.
Yeah.
And we all have people around us, or even ourselves. Addiction, drugs, alcohol.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make that person a bad person. They're just intoxicated, and they're trying to run away from their problems. And I did that for a long time. And it was. I guess it's part of growing up.
Most definitely, you've got to make the mistakes to realise.
Yeah, and I wasn't happy with my mum leaving me, but she had to save herself at that time. I was 8, and my dad was a tyrant, but he put a roof over our head. He gave me good things to grow up by and good values. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but at the same time, it was hard. My sister suffered more than me because she was younger, and I ran away from home when I was 16.
Okay.
And that's when I ran away, and I hitched up with my first girlfriend. And
was you still in Essex, or did you run to London? Because I know
you
was like, you headed for the lights.
No, I was still in Essex, and I was on the circuit, so... Because
you was doing like the local clubs by your sort of 16, 18. You was doing
16, 17.
You was doing the local, like the Colchesters, the Ipswiches, and all them kind of ones, isn't it?
And stuff in Colchester. And there was this guy called Phil Hills, right? And Phil, he died of cancer, bless him, and he used to live around the corner from me.
Yeah.
And so I was just that annoying kid. Like, I'd be in a record shop, I'd be in the club. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's this tune?
You turn around in the booth, you're in the booth.
And I'm in the booth. Oh, yeah, and I'm doing the lights.
Go get a drink, raise behind the bar.
And, I did the lights at the Tartan House, and I was like, I'd go anywhere just to, like, be around them times there I had a motorbike. So I could ride here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
Anyway, I started DJing. Like small little places, started to get a name for myself. And in the early days, I was called Mr. Farad, right? That was I've got
I never knew
names,
that.
flyers with my name on. And one of my mates who passed away, Johnny Holmes. So there's a lot of people around that time. So there was Phil Hills, he lived around the corner from me. Johnny Holmes, I was working in C Menswear. I got my first job. That's when people were wearing, 30 belows, and they were different coloured pants because this was 87, 88, and I was like, no, actually, go a little bit further. Yeah, so this this is 85, 86. Yeah, this is before the Summer of Love started to go on. I started to be on the soul circuit.
Yeah.
I met Cole.
So that was a big scene in Essex. The soul scene was a big scene, wasn't it?
Colin Hard,
the
Jeff
Froggies
Young,
and them lot.
Chris Hill, Froggy.
Yeah.
Robbie
Vincent,
big
them lot.
DJs.
Yeah, of course.
Canby Island was going
on. Gold Mine. Yeah, of course.
Colin Hard was there. It wouldn't be until 88, 89.
Yeah, so you was in the eye of the storm of that Essex movement, weren't you?
I would meet him, and then he would mentor me.
Yeah.
And Mickey as well, because he talks about me and Mickey being up at Rage, asking him about the tunes.
Yeah.
And Mickey's a gatekeeper.
In the booth again.
Yeah. Mickey's a gatekeeper, like myself, because we were avid on finding them tunes. Like Mickey was he was driving to go and buy Euro stuff in the car.
Yeah.
I was buying everything off of the vans. But I was on that circuit, and Phil Hills came up to me one day and he went, right, see you. I went, yeah, because I'd been doing soul nights, and then I'd start to play house, like every chance I got, I'd start to slip in a few house ones. And all my mates like Johnny Holmes, they'd follow me to the clubs. So 1 minute they'd be all suited and booted, next minute they'd be raving with wallabies on, and doing what they were doing. And they'd follow me around, and I'd have like 10, 15, 20
It's
people.
like rent a mob.
Yeah, and it was great. That was like my crew. And they were like, yeah, Ray, we're going to support you. And at that time, there was another dance that was coming through. It was called Mangled. I'd done a couple of dances myself. The first one I'd done was with Pogo.
What, the hip-hop
hip hop.
Yeah.
London Posse and all that.
Yeah,
so I got him to
proper.
come down and play.
Yeah.
And that was it was called the Bat Rave, and we did that at Woods Leisure Centre in Colchester. And that was my first time that I kind of met people that wanted to work with me. So I booked the DJs, they do the dance, they give me the money. And I was like, this is actually all right.
Yeah, I could do this.
But I wasn't mixing then, Doug's. I was just crossfading up and down.
Yeah.
That's what type
They're
of DJ
kind of blending
I was.
in and out. Yeah.
I wasn't even doing anything like that. But Phil came round and he went, see you. He goes, right, I'm going to train you up and you're going to have the residency at Cinderella's, all black club.
Yeah.
Like playing soul, rare groove, jazz. Mate, I had the best time there. I learned how to be a DJ. Fridays, Saturdays and Tuesdays. Tuesdays was under 18s.
Yeah.
Fridays and Saturdays.
Was you pushing the sound even then at that club? Yeah, that was the early.
So that was there was a tall guy called Tony, and I would. This is how mad it is. I'd be playing things like Keith Sweat, Karen White, you know. People would be just dancing, bossing moves, and then I'd play 3 or 4.
Here comes the
songs.
Derek May.
No, 3 or 4 slow songs at 1 o'clock or 1:45.
Yeah.
And then it'd be, I don't know, some Barry White or Alexandra O'Neill, and then everyone would be kissing and cuddling and whatever. Then I'd come back with that tune, Anyone Who Had a Heart by Smith and Mike.
Yeah.
And then I'd start to play some hip hop.
Building it back again.
I'd start to bust some house.
Yeah.
And it would go off. So that was as early as that. So and then I was on the soul circuit, like in Ipswich, at Hollywoods. I was playing with Carl Cox. I was playing with Stu Banks. All of them lot was doing Eclipse in Cambridge. So I was getting about. Kenny Khan was doing house nights.
Yeah.
And I was playing in Bedford. So then I started to move around this circle. And then one girl who I knew, hairdresser, Tracy, she knew them lot from the Crazy Club.
Well, that was where you first came into my world, to be honest with you. My first recollection of Ray Keith is Crazy Club Astoria. That's you know what I mean? But obviously there was how did that happen and where did that come around? Because it wasn't always, because it was already an established night when you It was a big night.
Were already doing, they were already doing Kings Road that time.
Yeah.
They were doing, and I was supposed to go with my friend Tracy, and I didn't bother going. And then, this is so fucking random. I'm in my mate's house, Les, and I'm playing, and Alex P is in the house.
As in Brandon Block, Alex P. Alex P.
So
Yeah.
Alex P's been sent out to recruit new DJs.
Yeah. He's just going around people's houses.
Going around people's houses.
Like Simon Cowell of Rave.
Tickets for all the big parties.
Yeah.
So they were like, you know what? Like who's hot round here? Because back in those days, they wanted the local DJ because he'd bring local people,
of course,
sell tickets.
Of course, yeah.
Then you've got
there's the coaches and all that in them times, of course,
So I was playing, and he was with. He's gonna kill me now. I've forgotten his name. But he was one part of the Crazy Club. There was 4 of them. There was Carl Pearson. There was Dave. Alex was with them as well. Yeah. And then there was another geezer, and the name will come to me. But anyway, I was playing, right? And he went, and they were astonished how I was playing from one side of the deck to the other. I mean, I'm not joking, right? One deck was where that speaker is, and one deck...
You have to get a cab
to
the other end.
I'd just be like... and I was playing, and I was mixing, and they was astonished how I was. Yeah. And then Alex went, you play like Paul Trouble Anderson.
Wow.
And obviously at that time, Trouble was on Centreforce, which was massive.
Yeah, of course, King Station. Yeah, man, yeah, for real.
Listening to.
Yeah.
So they went, see you need to get your ass up to Astoria. And that day I used to go record shopping avidly with my mate Bainey. Because I was resident as well, at Oscars in Clacton.
Yeah.
So I was moving from Colchester to Ipswich to Clacton. I was already networked.
Yeah, I remember talking to you before about your Saturday record shop runs. You'd go Bluebird in Bromley and this one. I remember you telling me this before on the phone.
And I used to go, so we used to go to Jiff's in Chadwell Heath.
That's my area, yeah.
Right, so I used to go and see George and his missus. So I used to go there. I used to get them bootlegs by Bros when will I be famous, but on a house beat, you know what I mean, little white label. Yeah. But all of them things were like big tunes when you were playing them. People say, how'd you get that? And I was always, it'd always say, because I was the new kid on the block. Then I used to go to Music Power. My boy Anthony used to look after me over there, and he was linked to MCMC. Yeah. And when I used to go over there, I used to see the cast of Grange Hill. Yeah. Roland and his
Roland's my boy as well. Yeah. From Music Power, funny enough.
Music Power, that's it.
I used to knock about with Lloyd Anthony and them lot when I was a kid.
That's it.
Yeah.
So Lloyd,
that's mad, Ray, isn't it, eh?
Bro, Lloyd.
I still talk to Roland now. Erkan. I still talk to him.
Do you?
Yeah, he's about still, man. He's a good guy.
And they knew us, and they were like, yeah, we know, you know, like we used to buy the records. But that brings me to 10 years down the line. There was always some dickhead who wouldn't sort me out. Yeah. And I thought and I was used to be in the shop, and I used to think to myself, why would you want that type of control? And I always vowed to myself that if I ever was in a position, you're getting everything. I'm loading you up. I'm not holding anything behind. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think 10 years afterwards, when me and Nikki were that partnership, I think that's why people loved us, is because we gave them the real shit. Yeah. Like, all right, you might get a couple duff ones in there, but that would be, your blight would be, bring them back next week. Yeah.
And there's always been a hierarchy in a record shop of what you get and what you don't. You expect that as a punter, and that's just how it goes down. But it was always a friendly atmosphere. Whenever I come in there, I always walked away with tunes that I know I wouldn't have got anywhere else. So I always left there happy. And
you were always going to get a gem. Right, and you would go.
Yeah, for real.
I meet people all the time. Ray, do you remember when you sold me this tune? I've still got that tune, and but that was giving them a bit of London, because people would come from far, you know, and the place would be a cloud of smoke. But I had an incredible being on the soul rare groove, and I was a selector, bro. I mean, I played in wine bars for 3 years. When Buster Brooker one day he went, "Oi, Stubbsy's not here, you're in the main room." I was like, what? I had my records with me. That was the moment I was waiting for. Went in there and busted it. But I was doing warehouse parties, and I was a selector from the early days, because that's what I was. That was my thing, you know what I mean? And then when I came to London, and obviously I'd sing Colin Hardplay. I used to go to Heaven on a Monday, Land of Oz. And I was straight. I've always been straight. It was Groove Rider that gave me my first spliff. I'll tell you about that in a minute. But when I listened to them tunes, it changed my life. Yeah. And when I was a youth, and when I was listening to the radio, and when I was listening to hip hop, and when I first listened to Donna Summer, I Feel Love, the Patrick Cowley,
the long mix.
Yeah. And I was a little bastard when I was a kid, because I would come from a broken home. I was fighting.
Right, you're a bit of a little bastard nowadays, still.
I was, but I had to be hard. Yeah, because that was how I was.
Well, mate, look, I grew up in Dagenham, and if you weren't that, you got run over. That's how it was. So I get it. And it must have been even harder.
I didn't want to be that guy, but you know what? If you fuck with me, I'm gonna fuck you up. Yeah. And I've been beat up by 6 or 7 geezers, like pounded on the floor, and my dad went to the school and filled him in. You know, like, I out here, and then that's when I started to go to karate, and even that was quite daunting. But then I got really good. I got to become a 3rd Q brown belt, one short black belt.
Wowzers.
And I was very disciplined, and I went training every Sunday, and I followed Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris and all the old boys.
I fuck with Ray Keith, bruv. Kick you in the head.
But you know what it was? I'd always want to talk before I'd fight. But if there was no other option, then, mate, you got
the roundhouse is coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's move on to the record shop, because I spoke with Nikki, and obviously the minute we spoke about record shops, he was so quick to bring your name into it. And like Nikki is synonymous, I guess, because of the name Black Market as well, and being his shop. But equally, I mean, your history in record shops goes beyond Nikki's. Deeper than Nikki's, in fact. And as he said in his own words, when he got you on board at Black Market, it was a huge deal for him and the shop, and it was a turning point in them getting a better style of music and pushing to what was to become the Black Market that we all knew and fell in love with. But take us back to before Black Market, City Sounds, and possibly even before that, because I don't think City Sounds was even the first shop you worked in.
I basically was working at C Menswear in Colchester.
The record shop, wasn't it?
No, that was a clothes shop.
Right, okay.
Then I went to King's Road, and I worked for Ferrucci. And whilst I was
Ferrucci, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I used to work.
We used to go on the Rob at their warehouse. They had a warehouse in just Gallows Corner.
Right.
We used to go Ferrucci warehouse.
Yeah, so you remember.
No, we didn't really. We didn't nick anything on it.
Yeah.
God, I forgot that name.
So, so I worked there, and then I was working at the wine bar. Then I was working for Buster Brooker. Buster Brooker was a big DJ. He was on Radio Orwell.
Okay.
And he used to give me all the promos. So I'd get more stuff from Pete Tong, Jeff Young, all of them people. And I'd be getting all of these. And then I'd now and again go to City Sounds. He got me the job at City Sounds.
Right.
And that was a really hard job to get to because there was a guy called Andy Thompson. He went on to work for Pete Tong. I was offered a job to go and work at Eternal with Eddie Gordon, and I turned him down.
Yeah.
They used to call me Ray Bonehead. That bonehead music. But when I realised what we were doing, 91, 92, I mean, bro, I remixed Orbital, didn't I?
Yeah.
And I gave that to Groove. And when I first met Groove at, I got the residence. So I went up to, so joining that together, I got my break. I went up to Astoria. I got the residency. I was working in this record shop.
Was you already in the shop when you got the Astoria? Right.
So I was then feeding.
So I'll admit you're in the middle of the West End, in the middle of the Eye of the Storm, weren't you there?
And then I was feeding Groove Rider and like tunes. Yeah. And then I was playing, and then Frost would Ray, I want them tunes that you give Groove. And then Fabio started coming. Then that's when I bucked up with Brian G. Now, Brian G.
So he was the link for the Orbital, because he was the label.
No,
was he out of Rhythm?
He was working at Republic Records.
Right.
So, but I knew Dave Lee, who was based in Colchester.
Yeah, he's an Essex boy, strictly underground boy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this connection was meant to be. And already, and then I'd been doing parties with Mr. C and Julian in Colchester, so my name had got around with them. And then I started to play at the Mangle parties, and then I started to play at the Tartan House, which Dave Malone put on a party. We booked Colin Hudd, and then I saw Colin Hudd, and I was like, this geezer's like mustard, you know, the way he was playing. Again, everything happened in the space of like 2 or 4 years, so it was changing really rapidly. You know, 1 minute I'm on the soul circuit, 85, 86, 87, and I'm with. And I'm with Stu Banks and that lot. Next minute, I'm working in London. I'm in the clothes shop. I'm working in City Sounds. Then I'm playing at the Astoria. Then I've got all the residencies. Then I'm buying records off of the van. And I mean, I'm buying that shit because they want me to listen. To go on the van, Ray, and have a listen. Whatever's worth, buy 5 or 10 of. And then I got too big for the shop because Jungle started to bust, but they made a killing in there. Bro.
Yeah.
Like a man would come in and say, Ray, I've got 300 of these. I'd listen to the tune and I'd go to Dave and I'd say, look, I could sell all these. He goes, Ray, are you sure? I like, mate. I said, if they don't get none, it's mustard. I'll sell all these. And Dave was very clever on how he used to play the record because he'd always play the good bits. But I wasn't as callous as him because I was buying the shit hot tunes. I put one tune up in the air and I'd play it. I would have sold 50.
Yeah.
And the queue in that little shop was at the back. And I was getting Frankie Valentine, one of the greatest DJs.
Yeah, proper.
That geezer is so far ahead. And he even said to me, Ray, just a really softly spoken guy said, Ray, whatever you do, just throw something at the wall and if it sticks, run with it.
Yeah.
And then I was with Frank and T. I was with Dom. I was with Brandon, I was with Alex, and I'd got accepted. I was on the house scene. I was the resident DJ at Astoria, and I would be playing 2-hour sets alongside Matthew B, alongside some of the greatest house DJs of all time. Frankie Bones, Carl Cox, Fabio, Groove Rider, me, Mickey, Frost, Brian. We'd already become household names through 88 up to 92.
Yeah. Well,
and then when the shop come, they got rid of me one Christmas. It was horrible. Like, no one talked to me at the Christmas party.
I'll give you the cold shoulder, yeah?
Darkness. And I was thinking...
And you didn't know why at the time?
And this is Christmas week, bro.
Yeah.
And then I go to the shop on a Monday, and they went, Ray, you need to go to the office. They're putting you on a training course. I walked through the office, and there was John, who used to own Greyhound distribution, massive distribution.
Yeah.
Bro, he just went, you're too big for the shop, Ray. You're going to be all right, though, son. And he
Little pat on the head.
Yeah.
Off you go, boy.
Enjoyed you. We've enjoyed having you, but you're too big for the shop now. And it was Christmas week, and I was crushed. I was on my knees. I was like, nah, this can't.
Well, just, you know what? Knowing the ages of what you've just told me of your kids, that must have been around the time when you'd have had a baby around that time. Must have been.
My first son.
Yeah.
My first son. And I was shitting my pants. I just bought my first house. My mate had sorted out my mortgage. I was on my knees, bro. Do you know what I mean? I lived in Clacton-on-Sea. I was giving it everything. You know, like Nicky, I worked day, I worked night, I didn't sleep. I always had a day job because I knew that I needed that money as a buffer.
Yeah.
And I was crushed, and I came out, the first person I rang was my dad. And I was like, I'm fucking, you know, there was a lot of bad taste that had gone on. That it's been forgiven now.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was very intense, it was hard. And I rang my dad, and he said, Farhad, you don't do any retribution. You hurt them in the pocket, and you put it where it hurts, and you go somewhere else. Second phone call, I phoned Groove Rider. I'm in a phone box, bro. Phone him from a phone
with a 10p.
My battery's dead on my phone. The big stalker, you know, the aerial, 10 foot high. I phoned up Groove. I went, bro, Rider, they got rid of me, you know. He went, what? He goes, man's going to boycott that shop, you know. He goes, what? They can't do that to you, Ray. And as I put the phone down to him, I thought to myself, let me phone Black Market. So I've rung direct inquiries. They've given me the number.
Yeah, direct inquiries. Even that's something from the past.
You know that, like, director.
People forgot about that.
Yeah, director inquiries. Can I have the number for Black Market? 0207, and you're trying
back
to
then it would have been
down and on a bit of tissue.
It would have been 01 back then.
Pen, yeah.
01.
And 01 or whatever. Yeah, 01.
Yeah.
And then I get through, and I go, mate, this is how mad it is. I say, hello, my name's Ray Keith. Can I speak to Dave Piccioni, please? It's Piccioni on the phone.
Wow.
And he went, yeah, I know who you are. I heard you just lost your job. Come and see me on Monday. I'll give you a job.
Boom.
Bro, I put the phone down.
I think you could enjoy your weekend off then, couldn't you?
I think I was so... And I feel emotional about it now, thinking about it, that I would be in such a trough, but then God would give me such a leg up that I would go, he just changed my life. I went there on the Monday, and they're like, yeah, we give you 3 days a week.
Off you go.
And I never worked a weekend at Black Market ever, where I had to at City Sounds, because I was like, if I come on, I'm not doing weekends.
Wicked.
And I did Monday to Friday. I started, and then, you know, Nicky was with his ear all bent up and all that. And when I met him, we just gelled, bro. Do you know what I mean? And we had kids. Like, I've seen him get married. He came to my wedding.
Yeah.
We got divorced. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when Stevie died, he called me. And it was heartbreaking, like, when his mum died, when my mum and dad died, like...
You got a proper brotherly bond, don't you, nowadays?
You know, I love, like, I'd stand in front of a bus for him, but everybody would for Nicky.
Yeah,
you know
of course.
What I mean?
Yeah,
He's that type of geezer.
Yeah.
And he's not bad-minded. You never hear any bullshit or gossip about Nicky.
No, everyone loves Nicky.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's just, and that love that he had, we just carried that on. And when I did my book recently, and even Bookham said, he said that connection that we have and those doors that we opened, because I was looking after Pete Tong, Jeff Young, Carl Cox, Paul Oakenfold. One of everything used to have to go into their cubbyhole.
Yeah.
Bro, I was sorting out Frost and Brian and Fabio and Bookham and me and Top Buzz, and we had the same fucking tunes. So we would go out. When I played LFO, and when that first popped in Astoria, I see Jason K run through the crowd and said, I want that fucking Chew, blood.
Yeah.
And Kenny done the same thing. Like, I was,
what moments though? When you, I mean, we're talking about it now, but you think LFO. Think of that tune. How still now what it sounds like. Imagine you had it when it was brand spanking new.
Test press.
At that moment in time when the drugs and the moment that we was all living at that time, whether you took drugs or not, it was like.
I never
fucking hell, mate. I was making the hair stand up on my arm.
I took 1 E and nothing ever happened.
Yeah.
So I that wasn't my thing. It wasn't until I met Groove that he gave me a spliff, and I got on the wrong train, and I was living in Clacton-on-Sea and ended up in Norwich. He said, "Smoke this, Ray, you'll be all right." And I smoked it. My mouth was dry, my eyes was like sandpaper. I woke up and I didn't know where I was. Because I was up early. I was a grafter.
Must have been good weed.
It was straight Jamaican. And you know Mickey and all of them, they burn hard. They're like avid weed burners. You know, book them as well. But that connection that I have with these dudes, and the girls, you know, like Danielle and Rochelle, DJ Rap, like we all grew up together. We lent each other our headphones. We sat down. We laughed. It was part of everything. Every weekend we would see each other, hug each other up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
And it was just an incredible time. But that moment in the shop when me and Nicky got together, when I look back at the power and the influence and what we done. And the gateway and how many people we brought through, you know, like we brought everyone through.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because until you said about the timing, I hadn't actually thought about this, but it was a match made in heaven in more ways than that, because it was like, that was the era where the breakbeat was starting to really take a hold. The music was speeding up and there was a lot of energy around this sort of prototype jungle. It's like you used to coming in together at that time, at that shop, the moving it downstairs, which was, as I spoke about earlier with Nicky, around 92 time. It was like that was all meant to be. You's meeting, that moment, that style of music. It was just... Well, it's funny how things work, isn't it, Ray?
You remember Acid?
Of course, yeah,
so
of course.
Aston was doing all the stuff, Blab's Posse.
He
was working with Dave Lee.
Yeah. He was working with Rebel and them at that time as well. When they're doing all
I was working with him. Cole Tough Enough Brown was an engineer over there. So this was
his
the
Wish
foundation.
Doctor days.
I found Photech. I was working with Dillinger, Lemon D. I was working with Busy. I was working with Remark. We were all in it together. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, let's talk about production for a minute, Ray, because this is like, I mean, you've had numerous hit records. You had remixes. I was going through when I was putting some bits together to have a bit of research, like, you was the king of the remixes before people knew about remixes, really. Like, but I think the first tune I probably bought of yours would have been June Too Much, maybe. Was that round about the first?
I did that with Aston. I had another engineer called Michael who sadly died. Do you remember that dude? He was in a phone box, and then they set him alight, and it was night in the 90s. That was
right. Oh, fucking hell!
And he'd had some mental health issues.
Yeah.
And then Aston was my main engineer. Then I did a little bit with Carl and Carl Brown.
Yeah.
And then my brethren, Pedro, who I met walking at this story, I used to wear a flat cap like that, 6'2", built like a brick shithouse. He looked at me and he went, "You want to hand me that?" And I was sweating because I parked my car around the corner. I was playing at Astoria, and we became good friends. I think Nicky mentioned Nookie and Pedro.
Well, I was going to say, because Nookie made Pedro Loves an Essex Salt on one of his EPs.
So Nookie and Pedro were working at Red Unity.
Yeah, in Beak Street.
Yeah. Round the corner from me.
Yeah.
And that's when Pedro introduced me to Nookie.
Right.
And
so had you not produced until sort of that era? No, was this your first stab at it?
No, I had done. And obviously I did the 92 remix of... Orbital with Aston.
Of course, yeah.
And that put me on the map. Groove played it, and then I'd done a few other big remixes after that. And then because Dr. S. Gachet used to play at Astoria, and he knew Gavin, and Gavin was engineering for him. And then I was like, oh yeah. And then Pedro introduced me to Gavin, and that was just a match.
Yeah.
So he was my engineer for 15 years.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, without knowing sales and bits and bobs, I'm assuming they were the most successful years of production of your life? Because when I looked at your catalogue, it's ridiculous, Ray. I mean, you've got the obvious, the terrorists and all of that, but when you go a bit, I mean, look, we heard one earlier. They was playing it in the studio next door. The girls then wanted it. Yeah, but I mean, from sort of 92 to, let's just say 96, before the Penny Black stuff even started and all of that. But that period there of like starting producing to Dread starting to even the Dr. Wu-Tang and all, like there is so much stuff. And then you look at the remixes, Ines, Scotty, there's fucking hundreds of them. Nookie, you know, you've mentioned him now, and I feel it's right that we should talk about your relationship with him for a minute. Tell us a little bit about the studio and the speakers and where you were made. Because like when you told me before about, you know, Renegade Terrorists made like Nookie's dad's speakers, blew the speakers up, and it was under the stairs or whatever it was, or where.
No, like it's his mum and dad's pantry.
Right, it's just like all them hits were made,
food, and that's
on a hi-fi speaker.
Yeah, on hi-fi speakers, so
mad.
And I made that tune because at the time I just wanted to smoke weed and go and check my girl. Do you know what I mean? Like that's
good old days, eh?
And I wanted a tune. I wanted the dub for that night.
Yeah,
and that's how I would work. Do you know what I mean? But Gavin, I mean, you can tell my music, and you can tell that Gavin's really musical.
Of course,
you can tell us both apart. But I would red line that bitch, that desk all the time. He'd be like, "You can't do that." I was like, "Yeah, I am."
Look over there.
And that's where I got my sound from. And he'd just be shaking his head most of the session, but he knew there was something special, and we just clicked. I mean, do you know what? I listened to that because I heard my nephew play. Joy Orbison's my nephew, and he played that. You Got Me Burning Up.
Yes.
Last tune.
It's come back again lately, that tune. It's been really popping off.
Do you know what?
A few people have been playing that lately.
And I remember Randall drawing it at Paradise, right? And it was just boom, 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 boom. The way he used to draw it. And even Fabio and Groove Rider, when I used to stand there and listen to my tunes coming in, I wouldn't think that it was my tune. And then I'd hear it, and then you'd see the people around you go, "Oh, yeah, that's your fucking tune," you know.
How does it feel, Ray?
Oh, it's a weird feeling, bro. It's like I come from nothing, so I never expected anything. So everything was a bonus.
Yeah.
And I've always been one of them dudes, like, people always say no to me. You can't do that. You can't do this. You're never going to be that. You're never going to do that.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if I am that, and it's not even to prove you wrong, it was just my path. And my work rate has always been prolific. And even now, I think I've got nearly 40 albums to my name, independent albums. But my way of expressing myself, rather than dancing with the devil and taking drugs and whatever, is I go in the studio and I dance with the demon in there.
Yeah.
And then that's how I beat him. Do you see what I'm
saying?
Yeah,
I love that.
That's my addiction.
Yeah. Well, it's mad, right? Because like when I think, like standing in a rave or putting a radio on and hearing your tune get played is a buzz in itself. But I mean, how does it feel? Maybe you can't describe it. Maybe there's no. But when you've made Renegade Terrorist, still now, all 30 years later, it still pops off. It's still a big compilation. It's a massive tune. How does Ray Keith feel? Like, no, whether it be now or back then, how does it feel when it's not just like a tune you've heard? It's like it's the fucking tune of that. It's everywhere. It's on the radio. It's in the raves. It's in the cars. Your mates, your enemies are talking about your missus. The dog's barking, and even the dog's doing the bass line when he's barking.
It was everything was strategically landed. So when I did Renegade Terrorist, the 5 or 6 people would get it straight away. Would be Fabio, Groove Rider, Frost, Kenny, Randall, Mickey, and then I would extend that to like Darren J, Doc Scott, and maybe Bookham always. But that would be my like 5 to 10.
Yeah.
And I know that in that rave, they're all starting with a tune or they're all ending with a tune.
Yeah.
And when I did that Mayhem remix, all of us went to Eclipse that night and we all started with the tune.
Yeah.
And then Doc Scott rang me and went, "Ray, what the fuck's that tune with the glass breaking and the big B line?" And I went, "I think that's mine, Scotty." And he went, "Ray, can I please let me cut that tune?" And I, you know, like avidly, I would listen to Groove Rider. You know, like he was the king, bro. He was the king of those jungle tunes, you know, like if you look at Made in 2 Minutes, I had a white label of that.
Yeah.
You know, he got that from us. There was many tunes I gave up for him. And in my interview, because, you know, Grooves, like, it doesn't really show a lot of emotion sometimes.
Yeah,
and he
does if you go West Ham.
Yeah. And I said to him, I said, he went, and I said, I gave you a lot of tunes that were in my box, that could have stayed in my box, but I wanted you to have them. And he goes, Ray, that's the testament to the type of geezer you are, because that was him to be. He was God. He was the demigod of, like, people would stay to hear him play.
Yeah.
Standard.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, anybody would say to you, boy, I'm staying. I want to listen to my man.
Yeah.
Brian Frost. We are cut from the same cloth. The way I play, the way all those guys play. Him and Fabio, the rough and the smooth, that gave us Rage. That was ingrained in us, and all the success that we've enjoyed, it's through them.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm very grateful for that. And even them playing my tunes, you know, and I know I've gone on and become an artist myself, and I am, but
they're your heroes playing your music. That's what I'm saying. That's the buzz, isn't it? That is the buzz.
When they played it, I was like, well, you can see me now. It makes me emotional because they would then go on to play that to the rest of the world. When I make it, it's mine. When I give it to you, it's for the rest of the world.
Lovely.
And that's how I guess it was so personal to me.
Yeah.
And those tunes were made from love. And some of them were made from adversity, because I wasn't getting booked and I wasn't in the dances. And I was like, you know what?
It's mad because you were smashing out tunes through them times as well.
And I was hurt because I wasn't getting booked. So I thought, right, you know what? I'm going to flood you lot. Yeah. And nobody knew who Ray Keith was. They thought he was a white dude.
Do you know what's funny in all, Ray? Let's just come to me. You didn't always push the name Ray Keith as a producer. Like, most of your biggest hits, when I think about it,
aliases.
Yeah.
Like
why was that?
Stuff, because I had too much stuff. And I was like, I don't want people to get...
You remixed a lot under your own name.
Yes.
There's a lot of Ray Keith remixes.
Everything would be strategically done. So I came up with The Dark Soldier. I came up with London's Most Wanted. So I gave that to Brian because they were on Chronic. And then I did that Chronic 7 and 8. And it's not until, like, we came into the digital age that I got a DM from Dizzy Rascal, and he went, mate, I never know you'd done them tunes.
Yeah.
Those tunes are my
tunes. Bear Witness?
Yeah.
Them ones, yeah.
And I said to my daughter, I said, I think Dizzy Rascals just DM'd me. She said, what, Dad? She took my phone. Because I just got, like, Instagram and all, you know, because I'm not, I mean, I've learned...
Well, you know, Dizzy's a super fan of yours, Ray, as you know.
I didn't know that. And Wiley and all them.
Yeah, man,
like, and even Wiley quoted, my nephew said to me, you know, Wiley said, if you could be a DJ, we'd want to be you.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
Because, like I said to you, we didn't have no social media. I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
It was only until I met Mala. I used to go around there. I used to sit. We used to drink tea and reason. Yeah. And he was like, Ray, do you realise that we used to run and get your tape packs? Like, your chopping and your darkness. Like, because it was always a bit of darkness, but there was a light there. And I always made tunes for girls. That's... because I knew if the girls were happy,
well, if the girls then wanted it,
but it needed to have that slight little inner corner, you know,
a little inner corner.
You know, it's got to have that kind of, and that's how I play. That's how Groove plays. That's how Frost plays. We have the light, but we take it dark, and when we take it dark, that's when. Well, you know.
I know, mate. I've been following you all forever.
And that's what we live on. You know, that's ingrained in us. And that's in my blood. That's in my veins. That ain't never going to die. Do you know what I mean?
Good. All right, well, the best way to express yourself and have no limitations is with your own label, Dread. I mean, you've become Dread Recordings over the years. I think probably... it might have even outgrown the Ray Keith name as who we know you as. I look at you and you look like Dread Recordings, if that can be a person. Yeah. But it started in 95. Yes, 95. The Babylon.
I went to Phil.
We haven't even talked about the Moby remixes and all. It's mad. There's just so much stuff, Ray. It's crazy.
Phil was the instigator of that. I went to him.
Is this Basement Phil?
Basement Phil. Yeah. I found Photech. I took him over there. I helped Dillinger and Lemon D to go over there. We helped Conga Natty to go over there, and we're gatekeepers, you know. And that I was blessed. I signed Danny C. I did work with Rupert on Certificate 18, and I've been at probably the pivotal points have changed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, you know, all the new kids that came in, Serum, Blade Runner, Voltage, just to name but a few that went on to become household names.
Yeah, you championed all them from early. I found out them through you, to be fair.
My job is to bring people in, help them, guide them, and then send them on their way. And then whatever they do after that, they do after that. But, you know, Conrad Subs, Joe, you know, DJ Hybrid, you know, all the Born on the Road lot, they come through me, they came to my studio. But, you know, like my production skills, my sound and my studio that I set up in Brick Lane, had some amazing years at Brick Lane as well when I was there. Also, I ran ATM magazine with
Forensic Jay.
With
it was with Ryan.
Ryan from Best
of course,
of British.
yeah.
We did the Best of British gigs together.
Yes.
So I've had such a colourful involvement, you know, even being a publisher, even being a promoter, and learning all the sides, and then doing my own nights and working with Jungle Cakes. You know, I was on one of the biggest agencies. Like when Groove Connection was there, it was the top agency. Then I went to Caroline.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I've just ridden those waves, and through the label, through the production, it wasn't until 2012 that I made my first album myself. My dad died whilst I was making that album.
Wow.
And then I kind of graduated into being an engineer, and even Blade Runner went, fucking hell, you're going to engineer now. Like, you're going to have a ball. And I have had a ball.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Do you know what, Ray, if you don't mind, can you just describe the difference between a producer and an engineer to people? Because for some people, they're not even going to have a clue what that is. But some people get it twisted and think that if you're not doing the buttons, you're not making the tune. And it's not really that. It's really, once you understand it, it's that what makes the tune. The buttons is the easy bit.
It's about conveying what you want in your painting into somebody else so they can recreate it.
Yeah.
So if for instance, and I'm doing an album with Juice Man because he's a vocalist.
I love him,
mate.
Top guy.
He's singing, and we're doing a vocal album together, and we're doing some projects together. But how I would work if I work with other people, like I worked with PA in Birmingham, like raw dude, super talented, and Blade Runner as well. So I'd go in the studio and I'd say, right, we want a bass line. Give me a few different bass lines. And then he'd play the bass line, and then I'd maybe adjust the note. Then I'd go, right, we're going to use this break. Then he would go in, and it would be like, make it sharper, make it rounder, make it fatter, add another break underneath. And it would just be a continuation of, like, sometimes I'd start with a break and get a loop, or sometimes I'd just start with the beginning and then end in a drop.
Yeah.
But it's about telling that person what you want, but there's nothing like doing it yourself, because I've made tunes out of mistakes. Do you know what I mean? Like, I pressed that and I was like, wow.
That sounds wicked.
That sounds wicked. And then I roll with that.
Yeah.
I mean, just before I went to America, I was like, I found this vocal from a soul singer.
Yeah.
And then I had a sample, like a sample that Full Hero would use, like really beautiful music. And I thought, you know what? I just want to make a dread banger so I can go out there and play it and they know it's dread.
Yeah.
And I did it in 2 hours. You know what I mean? And I played stuff to my daughters at home, and they're like, Dad, you just done that. And I was like, yeah, because I know what I want. You know, like, it's like when you've done something for so long, you know where to pull it out from. And even if you hear something new, you pull it out and you make it yours.
Yeah.
And what I try to do, and even if I did a sample, I took something, I try to bend it so it would sound better than the original.
Yeah. Do you still love making music as much as ever?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I see your videos when you're in your big brand speakers and in your studio having the time of your life, and I can see it, you know what I mean? I can see it.
The passion runs deep, you know. I'm sometimes a bit bewildered on you know, there's different layers to what we do. Do you know what I mean? And I think some of the music is throwaway and it hasn't got much soul. But if that's what they want, that's what they want.
Yeah, you're right.
And each to their own. You know, who am I to change their destiny? But all I know is they'll come back to the source because the source has been here for 30 years or 40 years and it's stood strong. It's got foundation. You can draw reference to it, and that's for all of us. And I believe jungle is a culture and it belongs to all of us. Not one of us invented it. We were all part of it. And whether that was you as a raver buying records, or whether you as a punter going to the dance, or whether you as a listener on the radio, you were part of that.
It's all the whole machine,
and that's what fed us. We fed you. We grew up with you. You grew up with us. And that's how it is. And that's how I want to look at it. And I think I realised that when I went to America, and I was telling you off cam, Public Enemies came to see me.
Yeah, I'm glad we remembered this, right? Because I wanted you to say about it.
And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, I got your records. And I was like, what? And that really solidified what we'd done worldwide, that those dudes would know who we are, because we looked to Black America for inspiration. A lot of us did, you know, hip hop, soul, Motown, the Jacksons, Diana Ross, you know, whether it was early Stevie Wonder, you know, it's the soul, you know. And we had jazz funk over here, so that was running at the same time, but it was our interpretation. Yeah,
but like I said to you off camera, Ray, what is, it's a beautiful thing that you don't get it, is that what they did for you, you're mentioning all them Stevie Wonders and all that, and it sounds mad because Stevie Wonder is Stevie Wonder and you're Ray Keith, and I get it, but to a generation, me included, like, you were our Stevie Wonders and Michael Jackson. Like, we didn't give a shit about them. Yeah. No, we did. That's unfair. But, you know, like...
Yeah, no, and I just...
We looked at you. You were the first generation that we could look at that was for us to aspire to be like. We didn't look at Stevie Wonder because we had yous. Yous didn't have yous.
But we didn't have fame then. We just had brotherhood and sisterhood.
But that was the beauty of it.
If I saw someone having a fit on the floor, I'll go over, turn them on their side and give them some water, and that's how it was.
Yeah.
It was like,
but I think that's the beauty, Ray, because early on, before business and everyone got too clever for it all, it was just pure. Yeah, it really was.
Like Jimmy from Labello, I didn't give a shit what colour he was. I was bossing his tunes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I didn't care what colour you was. I didn't see colour. All I just saw was you
vibes.
was my brother.
Saw vibes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're my brother. You're my sister.
Yeah.
And then you know, and we grew up with that love. And and I saw this famous dude the other day, and I was like an excited fanboy. And then my mate went to me, but people feel like that about you. Yeah. But I don't feel like I'm that guy. But
neither does he, Ray.
Neither
does he. He don't go around thinking I'm the man.
You know, we grew up together, so I was like, well, it's all of ours. You know? And I guess that's why we're still doing what we're doing. We're still humble. You know, I look at it and I've led my career, and hand on my heart, I can say I've played the music that I want to play. I've made the music that I want to play. I haven't jumped on anyone's shit. And I'm an innovator. I'm not copying you. I'll listen to what you've got.
No, you've always been your own person.
I'll bend
for
what
real,
you've got for me, because that's how my mind is. My mind is an open book for change. And that's why I've lasted so long. I mean, my new album comes out in May. I've got to line you up with that. I found during lockdown, this was a beautiful thing, I found 125 tracks that never came out.
Wow.
And I was in my house with my daughters, and I played each tune. I was nearly crying, bro.
Yeah. And these are all coming out now? These are the ones
coming out now. There's
sick.
2 albums coming out with Night Force. One was called The Golden Years. I need to get that to you.
Yeah, please, man.
That have never come out.
I'd love that.
And I was just like, they were like, Dad, are you mad? Are you not... But they were forgotten on Dad.
Of course, like I said earlier, you're so busy moving forward, you weren't even looking sideways, let alone backwards.
And Paul and Chris and Leon from Music House, you know, I would go there, and they were my family. I was an outsider. Groove took me under his wing, as he did SS. He took a lot of us under his wing, and he really, they gave us a sense of family, because I was quite broken when I came to London. And I think we all were, and that's why we had that brotherly, you know, man. Do you know what? The other day, right, I was out in Spain with with Brian and with Ryder, and they were roasting me because I'm a Man United supporter, and we were getting beat, right, like badly, and Brian's rubbing it in, and, you know, like he's Chelsea, and then I went to the loo and I come back and we'd all had lunch, and they went, yeah, no, don't worry about it, we paid for it, and I was like, look at that, all these years later. They just have your back, and do you know what I mean?
That's because that's
like,
how it should be.
Wherever we go, it's like,
Good.
oh, I've got that, and you know, and all through the years that we've been together, I've always tried to get people work. You know, like I was one of the first people to get people work in Magaluf. I was always opening doors, Doug's, like bring my man in. You know, me and Brian, I used to get him so many gigs. Do you know what I mean? And we was just like thick as thieves because, you know, we just travelled the world together, all of us. You know, 1997, Frost and Brian took me to America, you know, opened the doors for me, put me on V, put me on the parties. I've had some amazing residencies, bro. I was at Laserdrome, I was at Paradise.
Laserdrome, what a place. That don't always get the love that it should, Laserdrome.
Listen, I was playing music in there when there was still 4/4.
Yeah.
I met the guy and I was like, you need to bring my brethrens in. And that's when Sonia came after, and I was doing the bookings and put their man in there.
Yeah.
And even, you know, when we were doing Paradise, and then I was resident at Movement. Oh my God, Movement.
Yeah,
every Thursday.
Yeah.
Longest running D&B club. And I was resident with Rough Stuff. And
so that's some great nights down there, man.
Mate,
great times.
When Ronnie Size won the award, there was like 100 man in the box, and I was playing, and it was carnage. Every tune I played. But that was that, you know, those were the places where you could go and draw.
But also the appeal from the dancer. When we used to look at you lot being like that, it made us want to be more like you, around you even more. Yeah. It looked like he was having the best time of it, and you was, you know, and you really was
pulling me this way, or do you know what I mean? Darren Chase jumped on me and got me on a headlock, and because we just share that, you know. Even Mickey was one of the biggest god DJs up north. I remember going to play at Amnesia, and you know that. Can you feel it? Can you feel it? You know that, all of them tunes. I played that tune. I thought, I was a nuts. I thought, this is good. Mickey Finn come on, right? When they
demolished it,
mate, it was like God had stepped on the stage, and I kind of sunk down.
I thought I was bad a minute ago.
I was like, I thought I was all right, but yeah. And that happened to me with Paul Trouble Anderson one time. I was playing in Limelights. I played for 2 hours, and I'd warmed up, and he came on and he played this slam tune. Move your body to the dance floor. And he looked at me, he turned around and he looked at me, the place was lit, and he went, you're a bad boy, Ricky, but you're a bad man still. And then he started playing. And those moments, I got to tell you this moment, like it was about Nicky and his daughter, and you said, he was trying to find a moment. We were all at Ministry playing. I must have just left. And Mills went on after me, and it was a beautiful moment where she'd gone on, and she put a USB key in, because I was like, you're right, you don't need anything, because obviously I'm not going to leave her in the lurch, right? And she puts her USB key in, she's tapped or whatever, she's ready to go, she's played it, and nothing's happened, she's played it. And I'm standing now behind Nick because I'm going, and she turns around to him and goes, Dad, what's happening? Nothing's happening. And he just moves the fader in.
We've all done it, Ray. Right or wrong, we've all done it.
But what I'm saying is that lovely moment where it's not Nicky, Dad, what's going on? You know what I mean?
The panic sets in.
I just looked at him, right? I just looked at him like being a dad, and I was like, fucking hell. Like, they're still kids. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
love
it was
that.
just such a warm feeling that the three of us shared. Because it was, you know, like...
I mean, you've known her from a little
I've known
baby.
They were both at my...
a newborn.
They used to come to my house.
Yeah.
Like, his kids used to come to my house. He came to my wedding.
Yeah.
And my kids grew up together. My daughter's playing now, but she's singing as well, writing.
Proper.
And it's nuts to see them develop. Do you know what I mean? Like, she's played on a couple of my shows. Low Selector is her name. And she's just fearless. And
I
she
love
doesn't
it, Ray.
even mix. She just fades it in and cuts it in.
Yeah.
But everything, all the couple of shows that she's played of mine, like the Blueprint shows, she's been on fire. My mate's
Wicked.
like, oh, she's just so.
Mate, they're coming. The kids are coming, Ray.
They're coming, and I'm cool with that because I'm, you know, I've had an amazing, illustrious career. I've met some amazing people, and I love what I do. Like you, I love it.
Yeah.
I wake up in the morning and I'm like,
Can't wait to get going.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Well, look, we're going to have to wrap up in a minute because we're just over an hour now. But that brings us to this point in time now, because you say, like, I've had a great career, and you've played everywhere. You've had the biggest tunes. You worked in the best shop and the biggest shop. Like, you're Ray Keith. But you've got, like, a bit of a new stream. Before we talk about the future with the music and what you're going to be doing over this year and that, you're now going to a bit of acting. Well, not just into a bit. You're seriously, you know,
I've been doing it for about 7 years.
Yeah, I remember a while back when you sort of started. But tell us...
I went to Ashley Walters acting school 2017, 2018. I was in the dress rehearsals for Top Boy 2 before it came out, reading scripts. I started my journey back in 2012, 214. It must have been about 2012. I went back to acting school at Film Met and I'd done a crash course. Yeah. And then I kind of left it for a bit. And then like I said, 17, 18, I went to Kingdom Drama School, got a really good friend called Faraz. We did 2 years there, and then we both got agents, and then basically we both left that agent, and now we're on a new acting course that we're doing, that he introduced me to, and I feel like I'm connecting the dots now, because it's not just about, you know, the old days of being robber number 9 and bomber number 4. I'm talking about, you know, Daniel Day-Lewis. I'm talking, look at what we've achieved through music. Yeah. If you look at Queen Latifah, if you look at LL Cool J, if you look at Ice Cube, Ice-T, look at these guys. They're making movies now.
Yeah, well,
and
mate,
you know, look at Common, you know, like in amazing films. And even like when you look at our own artists from Top Boy.
Well, Trigger was in flipping... You know, he's off our firm, you know what I mean?
Do you see what I'm saying? So, and being inspired by all these actors, and yeah, I've been up for some mad shit, and I'm like, wow. And again, I think
it's a new challenge for you, Ray, isn't it? Again, you know what I mean?
Artist,
you've reinvented yourself a lot over the years. We haven't even touched on the live band stuff and whatever.
Yeah, I go live on the 30th of April. I go in rehearsals.
Well, there you go. That's what I'm saying. It's always like when you're not this, you're that, and when you're not that, you're there. And when you've had a go at that, I'll go and try over here.
Yeah, and I think as an artist, you've got to make yourself uncomfortable, because then that's when you learn.
Yeah.
And that's just me. That's my genetic makeup. I'm happy. I'm always going to DJ, but maybe like I can do like 1 or 2 shows a month. I'm happy with. I'll do the live band stuff, and then the DJing is always going to be ingrained in me. But the acting is a new challenge. I want to make films. I want to open up the door. Look at what doors we've opened up.
What about writing scripts and doing your own
things?
I mean,
that's 3 films. So I'm just waiting. You know, like I just wanted to get this tour out of the way. We've come out of the pandemic. I'm a single parent. That before I'm anything, Doug's is I'm a dad.
Of course.
And I wanted to stay around for my daughters and give them the foundation and the platform they need to be able to deal with this world. You know what I mean? However messed up and fucked up it is, and try and make this world a better place through radio, through our platforms, and just be good people, man.
Good on you, mate. Last question, obviously. What does the future hold? What you got planned for the year? What's
a lot of acting being put
I can't wait to see you in that. I'm like, I know that geezer.
Yeah, I'm really and the live band, I mean, bringing my music to life, how it should sound, and me playing the keyboards, and then I've got a drummer and a bass player. I've got singing artists. I've been working with Elisa, and I've been working with so many artists. We haven't been able to cover that, but we've got a lot of movement happening, and just embracing radio. New radio projects coming up.
Yes.
Consistent radio projects that I'm doing, and just keeping on my grind, man.
Love it. It's been a good time, isn't it, right? No, listen,
thank you, brother. Thanks for asking me to come in.
Oh, listen, thank you. It's the Junglist, get that right, Doug. Junglist Massive podcast. It's Ray Keith, that camera. And mate, here's to the next 35, 40 years,
Thank you very much. I'm blessed.
Big love. You go to bed now. Big up.